but we must ensure that we are also providing safety measures and educational materials for our children to avoid these tragic and preventable accidents from occurring. House Bill 3263 seeks to implement firearm safety into our Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, our TEKS. Over the years, we've added other appropriate topics to the TEKS for our students, such as bullying, cyberbullying, and harmful effects of tobacco, drug, and alcohol use. In 2019, TEA Commissioner did a Health TEKS study recommendation report, which included injury and violence prevention and safety as one of his recommendations. This bill seeks to address just that. The educational materials for firearm safety already exist through the DPS Keep 'em Safe Texas program, which we passed a couple of sessions back here in the legislature, making the small task of adding firearm safety into our school's curriculum that much easier and accessible. This is a simple but effective way to combat these unintended deaths and injury. Education on firearm safety should begin at the earliest age possible. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and reserve the right to close.
Members, are there any questions of Representative Howard? The chair recognizes that Vice Chair Hull is not present. The chair calls Carrie Moore and Lisa Ross. Carrie Moore. Represents the Texas Education 911 and Citizen Defending Freedom, and she's against the bill. Lisa Ross. Lisa Ross registered for the bill, and she's representing Lock Arms for Life and Self. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify for, on, or against House Bill 3263? If not, the testimony on House Bill 3263 is now closed, and the chair recognizes Representative Howard to close on her bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What's being passed out to you right now is one of the materials that's been produced by DPS for children. So we do have materials that are readily available that are part of DPS that can be shared with TEA. So this could easily be implemented into a curriculum, just to give the tips on what to do in order to maintain safety. And if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Are there any further questions? Representative Howard, you honored us with your presence here this afternoon, and thank you for this.
Thank you.
Bill. Members, the chair is going to move to leave House Bill 3263 pending. Are there any questions? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The bill would be left pending.
Thank you.
The chair now lays out House Bill 316 and recognizes author Representative Bernal, to explain the bill. Representative Bernal, Representative King's offered a committee substitute. The chair lays out a committee substitute and recognizes Representative Bernal to explain the substitute.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee, I'll be brief. House Bill 316 would effectively outline what it means to provide social work services for a social worker employed by a school district or an open enrollment charter school. And the committee sub it elaborates on that, but also it adds the option for a district to adopt a policy similar to what we already do for counselors that would require 80% of the time of a social worker to be spent doing social work stuff as opposed to other things like administering tests or doing hall duty or lunch duty or pick up and drop off. I believe I am the only MSW in the legislature, which means I win every award that they have because they have no one else to choose from. I'm the best and the worst at the same time. But we already have social workers working in schools, but we don't have them in code defining what they do, what they should do, what they can do. And so that is the purpose of the bill, to outline what social workers can do, what they shall do. And I'll read some of that to you. HB 316 lays out that social workers shall collaborate with administrators and teachers to enhance student learning environments, serve on committees that address education and safety issues, and collaborate with parents, teachers, administrators, and community members to implement strategies for violence, suicide, and child abuse prevention. It allows for school social workers to provide social work services to students and families in the district and conduct behavioral health referrals and group intervention services. But I want to be clear what it does not do, because I know there is some concern about that. I want to clear that up. The bill does not require school district to employ more social workers, although I wish that it did. That was what I wanted to file, but I could not. So it doesn't do that. This bill does not require students or families to engage with social workers at all. And the bill simply defines the role of a social worker within our schools to provide schools and social workers within those schools some clarification. And again, the one extra thing that I actually do like is that if districts can, this enables districts to say, social workers will spend 80% of their time doing social work and can't be asked to do other things outside of their job description in the same way that we do for school counselors. That is the A to Z of the bill. Happy to answer any questions, and of course, reserve my right to close.
Representative Allison?
Is, under the bills, the definition of social worker limited to a licensed social worker, or is there opportunity for others with comparable background experience?
I don't know that it doesn't require that they're licensed, but they have to be social workers by education. So either you're a BSW or an MSW or an LMSW, LSW. You can be any one of those things. It doesn't require that they're licensed.
Right.
Are there
That was my question. Thank you.
any further questions? Thank you. Okay, we have Carrie Moore and Jessica Riley. Carrie Moore. Carrie Moore. Carrie Moore represents Texas Education 911 and Citizens Defending Freedom, and she's against the bill. Jessica Riley, we show you are with the National Association of Social Workers, and you represent the Texas chapter and yourself,
Yes, correct.
and you are for the bill.
Correct.
You have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you so much. Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. My name is Jessica Riley, and I am the Community Engagement Coordinator for the National Association of Social Workers, Texas chapter, testifying for HB 316, representing myself and my association, also supporting the committee substitute language. We'd first like to express our gratitude to Representative Bernal's office and his staff who have worked on this with us since the beginning. This legislation demonstrates that simple policy solutions can have meaningful and wide-reaching impacts. Our association represents over 5,200 social workers across the state of Texas, of which 300 to 500 work professionally in school settings. School social work services center around removing barriers to learning by engaging parents and caregivers at every opportunity to support students' needs, whether it's truancy prevention, teaching coping skills, managing behavior from ongoing stress and anxiety, or access to assistance to meet basic needs. These services are critical to building and facilitating parent engagement, particularly in Title I schools, allowing teachers and administrators to focus on their work while supporting student well-being and academic success. However, the Texas Education Code does not currently include a definition for school social work services. HB 316 has no fiscal note, imposes no hiring requirements, and will do 3 things. 1, establish a much-needed, clearly defined scope for these services. 2, provide regulatory support to currently employed Texas social workers in school settings, over 1,300 of them for this academic year, while holding them accountable as well to dedicate 80% of that time to the defined duties if required by their Board of Trustees in their school district. And 3, ensure that school districts retain the option to voluntarily hire social workers by creating a codified foundation from which to seek out qualified providers of these services. The best practice ratio is 1 social worker to every 250 students. But the overall ratio for Texas schools right now is approximately 1 social worker to every 4,078 students. And a variety of challenges and crises over the past several years have amplified the need for school social workers. And as school districts make their own independent decisions to hire providers of school social work services, it is imperative that they be able to look to the code for guidance of what that even means. We urge this committee to accept the proposed substitute for HB 316 and vote it out favorably. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Members, are there any questions? Representative Landgraf.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The chair recognizes Chairman Dutton is not present.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate your testimony. Thank you. So you represent the National Association of Social Workers?
The Texas chapter,
The
correct.
Texas chapter, okay. And is it true that Representative Bernal is the best MSW in the legislature? Is that?
It is true from our knowledge that he is the only one with an MSW degree, and so he's made that joke before. I'm going to call him out with us. So, I am going to say that is technically true.
I can see it. But okay, thank you.
Yes, we need more of them. Honestly, run for office if you're a
Members,
social
are there
worker.
any further questions? We thank you for your testimony.
Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify for, on, or against House Bill 316? If not, the testimony is now closed on House Bill 316, and the chair recognizes Representative Bernal to close on his bill. The chair recognizes Representative Chairman Caprizione is now present.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Back to your question. I got a text message from my staff that says that you don't have to be licensed. Most districts prefer that they are, and most social workers working in the schools are licensed, but it is not a requirement. And depending on the kind of work they're given, it could go either way, but it's not required. So technically still the right answer, but they wanted me to clarify, so, and rightfully so. And unless there are any other questions, I'll close.
Chairman King?
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. What is the issue we're trying to fix here? Are they dragging them off to do other things besides social work?
They are.
Okay.
That was an issue with school counselors, and what we decided to do was to define their role and duty to make sure they were focusing on the students and the needs of the students, and not be used to administer tests or sharpen pencils or to do lunch duty. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you want that ratio to be just right. And so what we've done here is define the role of social workers and then give districts the option to invoke that 80-20 ratio. So we have social workers focusing on students and student needs and not doing other things, not being utility Swiss Army employees for the schools and the districts.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on, for, or against? Okay.
Just withdraw the stuff and get it. We already took testimony.
I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Members, do you,
It has.
the chair moves to withdraw the substitute and leave House Bill 316 pending. Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The substitute is withdrawn, and the bill will be left pending.
Thank you.
The chair now lays out House Bill 5118 and recognizes author. It's for her.
She doesn't have any witnesses. She doesn't have anybody.
Okay, I recognize Representative Goodwin to explain the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. As you know, the failures at the Robb Elementary School shooting were numerous. One such failure was that the school district police chief did not take his radio into the school because, as he said, he knew they didn't work. This bill was brought to us by Raul Diaz, the 911 Homeland Security and Public Safety Director of the Middle Rio Grande Development Council in Carrizo Springs, Texas. The radio interoperability system that he manages was stood up in the wake of 9/11, funded by a one-time congressional earmark. It consists of 16 radio towers spread across 9 counties, including Uvalde County. The system does not have a cost recovery function built in, and the infrastructure, which is over 15 years old, is deteriorating and out of date. The Middle Rio Grande system has received some funding from TxDOT to enable them to stay functional, but overall it's not able to rely on state funding and is only able to continue because of grant funding through the federal government, most of which addresses the equipment, not the software and connectivity. The primary focus of House Bill 5118 is to concentrate on strengthening the radio interoperability systems in the rural communities which are involved with or adjacent to Operation Lone Star. This includes 101 Texas counties. As you can see from a map that is included in the handouts, hopefully you have in your Dropbox, from the 2022 DPS Interoperability Report, the Middle Rio Grande is Region 24 of the Councils of Governments. COG Regions 3, 8, 9, 10, 17, 18, 19, and 20 are all included in or adjacent to Operation Lone Star and have room for significant improvement to their radio interoperability systems. As you can see from the map, the Middle Rio Grande system is actually leading other regions. Overall, Texas has achieved a level 3 out of 5 rating on average. So let's talk about the fiscal note. It's substantial. It's $273 million. It's important to note that the governor's office does have a dedicated revenue stream for the state's emergency radio infrastructure, which is not always utilized. In 2005, a law was enacted saying the office of the governor shall develop and administer a strategic plan to design and implement a statewide integrated public safety radio communication system that promotes interoperability within and between local, state, and federal agencies and first responders. The plan would specify how to purchase the equipment needed and would appropriate money for designing, implementing, and maintaining a statewide integrated public safety radio communication system. That's in the government code. This law has not been fully implemented, is what I would
Members,
say.
Are there any questions of our colleague, Representative Goodwin? None? Representative Goodwin? We're delighted that you're here. We know you have no witnesses. Members, the chair is going to move to, is there anyone else here wishing to testify on for or against House Bill 5118? Chairman.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank Representative Goodwin for bringing this bill. It hits right at the heart of a couple of things that were really brought to light in our part of the world. You know, the radio systems in the rural parts of America particularly are a real challenge. So anyway, thank you for doing that.
Any further questions, members? Anyone else wishing to testify on for or against House Bill 5118? If not, the testimony is now closed, and we recognize you, Representative Goodman, to close on your bill.
I close.
Thank you so much. Members, do you have any questions further? Thank you. Members, the chair moves to leave House Bill 5118 pending. Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The bill will be left pending. Chair lays out House Bill 34. And recognizes author Representative Toe to explain the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this House Bill 34, the Secure Classroom Act, empowers teachers to address violent students in their classroom. This addresses a change in the law that 37 states made back in 2013, which was the Promise Program. This bill does not seek to eliminate the Promise Program, which seeks to make sure that we stop the schoolhouse to jailhouse pipeline. What we simply want to do is amend it, though, to address violent students in the classroom. Teachers are telling us they have students who repeatedly disrupt classrooms, and this bill seeks to address that. With that, I seek to close, or reserve the right to close.
Members, are there any questions? How does it seek to address that issue?
What we're doing is we're setting up, Madam Chair, we're setting up a panel of teachers to review a violent act of a student, and they would have the opportunity to refer it to the district attorney if it's truly a violent act, as opposed to a truancy issue or a Class C misdemeanor, which was what the Promise Program sought to address back in 2013 when we adopted it as a House and Senate.
Okay. Thank you. Members, any further questions? Jennifer Simpson, Melissa Martin, and Taylor Likens. All right, Jennifer Simpson, we see that you are representing yourself.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
you are for the bill.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jennifer Simpson. I'm a public school teacher. I'm here representing myself. I'm not representing my district. I'm here today in favor of the bill, House Bill 34. This is my 14th year teaching elementary. Many years ago, our school began implementing something called PBIS, which is Positive Behavioral Interventions and Solutions. The hope was and continues to be that we as teachers can encourage and promote student success by setting classroom and school-wide expectations. While this is the norm of good classroom management, I feel it's a Band-Aid for the 1 to 5% that will reach the 3rd tier of behavior interventions. By the time the student reaches Tier 3, it has likely been at least 3 months of failed interventions. 3 months of a student disrupting the learning environment for the 21 other students in the classroom. 3 months of other students witnessing this behavior, and at times questioning their own safety, wondering if they'll have to evacuate the classroom again. It's apparent that the stress of these violent situations is taking a toll on the students and, of course, the teacher, which is a huge reason why many teachers are leaving the profession. The definition of insanity is doing something over and over, but expecting different results. When it comes to violent behavior, something has to change, and House Bill 34 is a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Members, are there any questions? All right, we have Melissa Martin, and we see that you're representing yourself, and you are for the bill.
That's right. So my name is Melissa Martin, and I'm here in support of House Bill 34. I've been in the public school classroom for 23 years now, and before serving as a public school teacher, I was in the United States Air Force. It's kind of interesting because I moved from the flight line to where I feel sometimes like I'm truly on the front lines. And when I used to say that in jest, but it's started to be a little more serious because we've watched as violent behaviors have escalated, and I'm not here to represent my district. This is something that we've seen across the board. It's not any big secret. Another thing is I've been working on my dissertation for my doctorate, and I've been doing a lot of research about the mental health of teachers. I'm very concerned about teacher attrition. And one of the big things that we've found is that teachers are very concerned about student behavior, and we're very concerned about the safety, not just for ourselves, but also for our other students. So I really think that this will make teachers feel a little more secure in knowing that our hands are no longer tied in trying to get a hold of the violent students. So I hope that you guys will pass this bill out of committee so that we can give our teachers a little bit of reassurance that we're not going to continue to tolerate the violence in classrooms.
I want to congratulate you on your continuing education. During your course of study, have you been able to find what may be some of the causes of this violent behavior?
I'll be honest, I think some of it is we enable it by continuing to not have consequences. You know, recently, and not so long ago, I had a student that had assaulted another student. And this student, it was a pretty severe assault. And so this student got arrested and then spent 30 days in DAEP. After the student came back to my classroom, the student acted very different. And I asked this student, what exactly has been the change? Why did you act different? Why are you acting better for us? And the student said, I don't want to get arrested again. It wasn't the DAEP that actually changed the student's behavior, and but it was actually being arrested. So I think that sometimes even having consequences that seem really pretty harsh like that can help to eliminate some of the repeat in the future, because sometimes DAEP doesn't get their attention the same way as I hate to say, putting on a pair of handcuffs. But so I think that really attributes part of it is we've just allowed the behavior to continue without having consequences that gets their attention.
Chairman Dutton.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question. I was talking to one teacher, and she said that if a fight breaks out in her classroom, the policy was for her not to intervene. And I thought, how could you be teaching English and a fight's going on in the back of your classroom? Is that your understanding too?
You know, I don't know that we've been given a real directive on how to handle that. We typically, I'll tell you, I'm 5'4", and if I have a couple of young men who are over 6 foot tall fighting, I'm not going to intervene in that. I'm going to call for help. And so by the time that happens, by the time help shows up, people could be seriously hurt. But I don't think it's reasonable to expect us to intervene in a fight. The only time I've ever gotten in between some kind of what was a physical altercation was one time in the hallway when there was a young man that was being really rough with his girlfriend. And at that point, it wasn't my teacher hat that came on, it was my mama hat, because I have a daughter. And so I was in between the two of them just waiting to get punched in the back of the head. It didn't happen, thankfully, but I was kind of bracing myself thinking that was going to happen. But no, typically, I don't get in the middle of a fight. That would be foolish to do that.
Well, that's what I thought, but I wondered how you could keep, because the people that are hurt are the students in the class. You're not able to continue teaching either, because that's a disruption that's going to cause everybody to have some failure. But I just wondered if you'd been instructed at all in terms of what to do if a fight breaks out in your classroom.
Well, the thing that we're supposed to do is get help. But at this point, this is part of why, there's a lot of other students that are not violent, and somebody needs to be advocating for them.
Right. So they tell you who to call for help?
Well, there's a few different things. You can call the office, you can call the SROs, you can literally scream down the hallway, or sometimes they provide whistles that's supposed to get attention, but it's kind of what we have.
Really? So there's no set manner in which the policy requires you to address a disruption in your classroom?
It's probably different depending on which campus you're on.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further questions? All right, Taylor. Look like it's your time now. I show that you are representing yourself and you're for the bill.
Yes, ma'am. So, my name is Taylor Likens. I'm a high school CTE teacher from East Texas, and I'm here representing myself, speaking in favor of HB 34. In the time that I've been teaching, a consistent problem I've seen in every facet of public education has been the prevalence of students who feel empowered to act out violently. This is a corrupting force and one that has gone largely unchecked. The main feature of current policies has been reduced accountability, resulting in classrooms bogged down by a select few students who feel empowered to act out in whatever way they wish. In the beginning, behavior of this sort is a child's attempt at testing their boundaries. I have personally witnessed such students take pleasure in testing what they are capable of getting away with, destroying their surroundings, assaulting their classmates, even assaulting teachers, knowing that they are more protected from the consequences of their violence than anyone else is from the actual violence itself. Once a student realizes their school is unable to or reluctant to address their behavior proportionately, it becomes an escalating process. I've seen students go from making public death threats to committing violent sexual assault. I have seen students go from cursing at their teacher to physically assaulting them. I've seen this snowball between classrooms and across years, and it has always seemed completely preventable to me had the students ever actually been duly penalized for their actions or ever even seen one of their peers duly penalized. It is true that many of these students are in some way disadvantaged. This is part of the unfairness built into the disparity of our circumstances. However, it should also be said that the classmates of these students are also typically disadvantaged. Charitably interpreted, the intent behind protecting these children is good-natured, but ultimately comes at a price antithetical to what the advocates of disadvantaged children are actually striving for. The disadvantaged and the at risk are the students who will always disproportionately pay for the cost of rampant delinquency. They are the ones whose brief opportunity to learn the habits and knowledge needed to improve their circumstances are most burdened, derailed, and sabotaged by peers who do not believe they will be held accountable for corrupting the school environment. I would challenge anyone to learn long division, a foreign language, or simple academic discipline under these circumstances. Any policies that streamline a school's ability to address a student's behavior in proportion will be a massive benefit to children across the state. That's all I have to say.
Any questions, members? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Carrie Moore and Stephen Arends. Carrie Moore. Carrie Moore is representing Texas Education 911 and Citizens Defending Freedom, and she's for the bill. Stephen Arends is representing himself, and he is against the bill. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify for, on, or against House Bill 34? If not, the testimony is now closed, and the chair recognizes Representative Toth to close on his bill.
Thank you, members. Madam Chair. Nearly every high school in America has a TikTok fight page. I looked at one a few months ago, which showed a neighboring ISD to mine, where a kid was assaulted by another child. Neither one of them, even though one took a beat down pretty badly, neither one of them were reported to the police because the superintendent stated very clearly that it was mutual combatant. And that's what they refer to it now. Unless one of the individuals drops to their knees and huddles in a ball, you can take a beating. If you stay on your feet, it's mutual combatant. This has got to end.
Chairman Dutton.
Thank
Yes, sir.
Chair, I have a question. Could you raise the point with me? Would a student who is defending themselves get caught in this too?
Yes, they would be considered mutual combatant. And this is, if you reach out to some of the districts, that's what TASB's calling it now, is mutual combatant.
So we'd almost be requiring an unnatural response, because if somebody was beating you up,
You can't defend yourself.
you're supposed to stand there and just take it?
No, you're supposed to drop down into a ball in huddle. That's what we're told.
That just seems so unnatural. Why would somebody do that?
And it's almost like you've got to tell kids at the beginning of the school year that the only acceptable thing is to drop into a ball and try and somehow just defend yourself in a ball. Huddle on the ground.
And I'm sure that doesn't go over well with students. Students got better sense than that.
Yeah. Yes,
There's
sir.
probably not very many students, but what this does is you end up punishing the student who is defending him or herself also.
Correct.
Okay, and it says here I guess I got a lot of questions about it, but one, you say the students can be required to perform a certain number of hours of community service.
Correct. Yes, sir.
What happens if they don't?
So the intent is a juvenile diversion program, right? Whether it's community service, and if they don't, then they would be turned over to prosecution by a district attorney's office. So the intent, again, is to maintain the Promise program and some kind of juvenile diversion program, because we desperately want to keep kids out of jail, I think.
Right.
And I think we've failed by saying to kids, you can do anything you want in the classroom. There is no consequence for it whatsoever. And we want to restore order to the classroom. Texas actually has one of the premier juvenile diversion programs in the United States. It's called the Challenge Program. And had the opportunity, it's in Eagle Lake, and I would strongly recommend that out of session that you make it. It's a boot camp setting for boys and girls. And you hear some of these stories of kids that have been sent there that a few months later have tears in their eyes because they've got their life back, and their parents feel like they've got their kid back. They've been reeled in. It's kind of a boot camp setting, if you will. But it's not jail. It doesn't go on the record. It teaches them discipline, teaches them self-confidence, teaches them encouragement, gives them guardrails. It's a wonderful program. And I think we just have to get creative if we want to hold and save these kids. We can't leave them in the situation that they're in right now.
Well, we get a lot of conversation in public ed about bullying.
Yes, sir.
For example. And it seems school districts come here to ask us to help them with the problem of bullying, and I'm not sure we're the best place to come to help that, because when we design a solution to a problem, we typically try to do one size fits all, and it ends up fitting nobody. And so to do that with bullying, and I've said to them, to school districts, that it seems to me that bullying ought to be like the toilets overflowing. You go stop it, and do what you have to do to make it go away. Because if you don't, it recognizes there's some amount of bullying that's going to take place. And I noticed the number of people that you had on the, what's it called, the school, the
Secure Classroom Act?
Yeah, yeah. And you got 2 teachers, you got a district attorney, and an investigator for the sheriff's office. Would the child be subject to having legal representation in that committee?
They should have legal representation.
Okay. Would the school district be required to appoint them? If
Well, I
they
think
couldn't afford one?
Well, it depends. So in Montgomery County, and I don't know if our county is like every other county, but the county attorney handles all juvenile cases. And they would be responsible for making sure that the child had representation.
The DA's office?
Right, correct. Well, yes, our county attorney's office is the one that prosecutes juvenile cases.
That's a little troubling also. I mean, if the DA, because the DA is probably going to select somebody formerly in the DA's office.
But that's something I'd love to work on with you if you
Okay.
have an idea on how we can make that better.
Yeah, because I think there's, well, look, we'll talk and we'll work on it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. Madam
Members,
Chair.
are there any further questions? Representative Allison?
So just so I understand, is the intent of the bill or the operative facts of the bill that the diversion program would kick in no matter how violent or harmful the?
No, we had we had a situation where a child told multiple friends, don't come to school tomorrow. It will be unsafe for you to come to school tomorrow. And only one of the 10 kids told their parents, who called the police. They went over to his house. They found a suicide note. They found guns. They found ammunition, the whole 9 yards. That kid was back in the school within 3 weeks. And so, no, I don't think that child is eligible for a diversion program. But again, here's the problem is that very often because of what we did in the 83rd session, there's confusion around it. And we're told that the district attorney's office can't be pulled in. And so this kid stayed off the DA's radar, much the same way the problem with the child in Uvalde stayed off the police radar as well. He drove through town he had dismembered a cat and threw it out the window in a Ziploc bag. Well, that's a state jail felony in the state of Texas to torture an animal and dismember it. But the district attorney's office never knew about it.
But there'd still be nothing preventing the police being called from the original incident if it was serious enough.
No, there's nothing to stop that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right. Thank you.
Any further questions? Representative Toth, thank you so much for this bill. Members, the chair moves to leave House Bill 34 pending. Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The bill would be left pending.
Thank you, members.
The chair now lays out House Bill 1678 and recognizes author Representative Jeton to explain the bill.
Thank you, Dean Thompson. And members, I'm here to lay out House Bill 1678, which establishes a local remote learning program offered by a public school for certain students at risk of dropping out of school. By allowing districts and schools the opportunity to recognize a student that may be struggling or at risk of dropping out, they can help those students enroll in a local remote learning virtual classes that will allow them to still complete their school and graduate. Virtual courses will be provided through asynchronous instruction and provide for at least the same number of instructional hours as required for a course offered in a program that meets the required. The program creates an opportunity for students to at risk of dropping out to take courses that meet their needs, but also matches education rigors that students are expected to be at. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I reserve my right to close.
Members, are there any questions? All right, we have Melissa Smith and Dr. Roosevelt Nibbins.
Both of them left.
Okay, then Melissa Smith represented the LCISD, and she was for the bill. And Dr. Roosevelt Nibbins was the superintendent of Lamar CISD, and he was for the bill. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify for, on, or against House Bill 1678? If not, the testimony on House Bill 1678 is now closed, and the chair recognizes Representative Jeton to close on the bill.
Thank you, Dean. I appreciate the opportunity to lay out this bill. It was brought to me by my school district, Lamar Consolidated ISD. And so Dr. Nivens is the superintendent and Dr. Smith is the director of the special sites. They have about 800 students that they've been able to put through this program that are students that would have dropped out that now have their high school diplomas. And so hope to have your favorable consideration. And if there's no other questions, I close.
Thank you. Members, the chair moves to leave House Bill 1678 pending. Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The bill will be left pending. The chair now lays out House Bill 2962 and recognizes author Representative Thimmich to explain the bill.
Thank you, Chairwoman Thompson, Vice Chair Hull, and members of the committee for giving me the opportunity to lay out this bill. Last year, one of my constituents, who's actually here in the room today to testify for this bill, came to me expressing her concerns regarding a situation at her children's preschool. For weeks, parents, teachers, and administrators reached out to local law enforcement to report an individual who would camp out next to the school's playground for extensive periods of time. While the individual was not on school grounds, parents and teachers were still concerned with the children's safety to the point that the school stopped letting the kids go out to the playground while he was there. Because the individual was technically not violating any laws, the police couldn't do anything unless the individual did something to harm the children. Chapter 37, Subchapter D of the Education Code outlines safeguards school districts have in place for students and faculty if a person exhibits certain harmful or inappropriate behavior while on property under the district's control. If the person fails to abide by the verbal warning to not come back onto school grounds, they would commit the offense of trespassing on school grounds, which is a Class C misdemeanor. This section of the Education Code, however, does not include language to offer the same protections to daycare centers and does not include property around the school. House Bill 2962 amends the Penal Code to create a criminal offense of trespassing on or near a school or daycare center. With this bill, a person commits an offense, which would be a Class A misdemeanor, if the person enters or remains on school or daycare center property or public property located within 250 feet of school or daycare center property. For an individual to be charged with this crime, they would have to pose a substantial risk of harm to any person or behave in a manner that is inappropriate for a school or daycare setting and would have to receive the request to depart by failing to do so. Several other states have laws relating to loitering on or near school grounds, and while the state of Texas does not have loitering laws, House Bill 2962 would offer similar protections for areas surrounding school grounds. Chairwoman, members, thank you again for the time to lay out this bill. We've all heard of awful stories of children being followed home from school and then being abducted, other times with the abductor watching or stalking the child prior to making their move. This bill seeks to ensure situations like these are prevented, and I would appreciate the committee's favorable support. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Were you able to determine if he was stalking
If he was stalking,
any particular child?
well, the one in our district was just coming and just standing on public property, but very close to the daycare center, and the police just were called. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't ask for him to leave.
You know whether he was a father, maybe who didn't have parental
No, he was not. He was not related to anybody at the daycare.
Okay.
Not related to anybody, any workers or children.
But just, so we need to, okay. Thank you. You answered my question. Representative Johnson.
Now, I do just have a question about how we get to the definition of what's, quote, inappropriate behavior, and it may be that the facts that come out of that circumstance would fit to it, but I had the same questions of.
And actually, the person that was there, but we've since had other churches and daycares where they've had other situations where school districts have said, you know, we've had somebody that just is standing there watching, would just like to at least have an opportunity, you know, to have somebody go up and talk to them, just go 250 feet back. That gives us enough space that if something were to happen, we were able to protect the kids.
Okay. Thank you.
But happy to clear up any language, Representative Johnson. No.
Catherine Sales, Robin Holtz, and Judith Insweiler. Catherine Sales, we show that you are representing yourself and you are for the bill.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Chairman Thompson and committee members. I truly appreciate the opportunity to speak to you in support of House Bill 2962. This is the first time I've ever testified, so please be patient with me. It is quite ominous, but thank you for your service in our
We'll give you
House.
3 minutes of patience.
Okay. Thank you. I hope that we can all agree that the safety of our children, those most vulnerable members of our community, should always be a priority. I'd like to share a story of our community. Our community's elementary school's playground is on land owned by our HOA, not by our school district. So as law is written today, we cannot ask anyone on that playground to leave until we contact the HOA and get their permission. And so this bill would provide a safety and security level of protection that is not currently available to our school administrators. They can observe a person out there, but they cannot even call the police because they're in their legal right to be on that property. In closing, I would like to respectfully ask for your support of HB 2962. And once again, thank you for this opportunity.
Members, are there any questions? Thank you for coming. Robin Holtz, we show that you are representing yourself and you are for the bill.
Hello. Thank you, Chairwoman Thompson, Vice Chair Hall, and committee members. This is also my first time testifying and my first time to our great Capitol. I told my husband I wouldn't cry. It's only 3 minutes. I'm the one that filed the bill.
We don't have any clinics up here.
That's okay. I'm the one that contacted our state rep to file the bill. I'm a mom of 3. They're all in the same daycare, and I'm a business owner. There's been a man the past year that hangs out near their playground. Multiple parents have called police. The school is called. We've all asked him to leave. His response is that he knows how the law is currently written. The school no longer allows the children to go on the playground when he's there. There's so many times. My son turned 4 yesterday. My daughter's 2.5, blonde hair, blue eyes. They're the best part of me. My son will be 1 next month. There's been countless days I picked them up, and they didn't go outside all day. We've exhausted all measures to get him to stop. The law says you have to be on school property before the cops can respond. This man is 6'5". He's about 350 pounds. By the time he steps on school property, it's going to be too late. The school has automatic doors that lock because that's required. How is a teacher to rally 20-plus small children, get a door unlocked, notify someone for help, all while blocking a predator from the kids at the same time? She can't. Or imagine someone casing a school, grabbing a child, and driving off before anyone has the ability to respond. These are all events that could be prevented by voting yes to House Bill 2962. Let's not give predators more access to these kids than needed. This has opened my eyes at how much we are failing to protect our children. Our kids trust us to protect them. We as a state aren't doing a good enough job to keep them safe, and we can do better. We moved to Texas years ago to open our business and start a family because it's a great state. And in my opinion, which I'm sure y'all share the same one, it's the best state. Why are we finding that other states are doing better to protect their children than we are? This is unacceptable. We should set the precedence that our children are our priority, and that if you are suspicious and around their school or near it, you have a right to be discussed and investigated.
Members, any questions?
Thank you for coming to
Representative
testify.
Johnson.
Very much appreciate it. I know you're upset. Could I follow up with Representative Timish later, and maybe we talk a little bit more, because I know that Representative Hall and I both asked a question about a term to figure out if there's a way to work on it. Would that be okay if I talk to you later?
I love that.
Thanks. Thank you.
Don't tell my husband I cried.
Vice Chair Hull.
I just wanted to thank you for coming and speaking. As a mom, I know that's very scary, so thank you.
Judith N. Willer, and you are representing the New Hope Daycare and yourself, and you are for the bill.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and Vice Chair Hull. I am on the board of the New Hope Daycare and have been for several years. It is not the daycare that Robin's children attend, but it's at a very busy intersection, and we are definitely in support of House Bill 2962. We see that the teachers and the administrators are entrusted with the security and safety of children when they come into the school. When they go out in the playground, there are people that are walking by. Although we have not had a particular incident at this point in time, I feel that this bill would provide the community with an enforcement tool when it's necessary to help protect children when we do see incidents like this. So I really believe that House Bill 2962 would be something that our community, as other communities, could use to their benefit when needed. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify for or against House Bill 2962? If not, the testimony on House Bill 2962 is now closed, and the chair recognizes Representative Thimbich to close on her bill.
This one was here, but she's not here.
That was a Carrie Moore. Did Carrie Moore ever come in? Carrie Moore? Carrie Moore was here to speak against this bill, and she represents the Texas Education 911 and Citizen Defending Freedom. Let's see. Members, the chair moves to leave this bill. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
It's been a long day.
No, it has been a long day. If there's no questions, I close.
Thank you. That's an excellent close.
Thank you.
Members, the chair moves to leave House Bill 2962 pending. Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The bill will be left pending. Chair now lays out House Bill 4165 and recognizes its author, Representative Frazier, to explain the bill.
Well, good night, Chairwoman and members.
And good morning to you.
I know it's been a very long day, and we'll get through this as fast as we can. Thank you for the opportunity to lay out 4165. It's pretty much a simple school safety bill. I had several calls from some of my superintendents and some other superintendents in the Metroplex area and a little beyond. We do have a committee sub for this. We're waiting for it to get out of Ledge Council. You will have it shortly. It has address some the conversations we've had with law enforcement and some of the knife right folks that will be testifying in the room. We're trying to work with everybody in here. What this bill is trying to create is create a criminal offense for individuals who are carrying knives, knuckles, and switchblades in public schools that would make it a penalty for a Class A misdemeanor. Hopefully to help ensure some of our schools remain a safe place for our learning for our kids. The committee sub will carve out the language for security officers and anyone handling a knife in the school sanctioned event, such as a culinary event or a home ec, etc. This bill will help our law enforcement often deal with who's trying to figure out how to prosecute these crimes because of the juvenile nature of the offenders and definite rules of the statutes in various school districts. Thank you again in consideration of this bill. I look forward to any questions. I know there's some public testimony that's going to be behind me.
Members, are there any questions? Thank you. Todd Raffner, Rick Briscoe, and Carrie Moore. Carrie Moore would be representing Texas Education 911 and Citizen Defending Freedom, and she would be, and herself, and she's neutral on the bill. All right. Rick Briscoe, I was talking about you today, about that ability for persons to be able to fill out a form, to do the to get, to clear your record on guns, you know, possession?
I'll be very pleased to speak with you offline about that.
Okay. I see that you are registered against the bill,
Yes, ma'am.
and you are representing Open Carry, Texas.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I am Rick Briscoe, representing Open Carry, Texas, Texas civil rights organization specializing in First, Second, and Fourth Amendment issues and speaking out on veterans issues on behalf of our many veteran members. First off, I want to thank the bill author for engaging with us in a discussion on the bill. I have absolutely no doubt that he has good intentions. Unfortunately, my organization must take a position against it because of concerns over overreaching, unintended consequences, and by creating a new criminal offense, we believe that it encourages skipping the many disciplinary steps that the schools have available to them. The first thing I did when I read the bill was go to the student handbook for the independent school district where I live. And it's very extensive about what is prohibited on the part of the students and lists the numerous administrative actions that can be taken of a disciplinary nature, leading ultimately to expulsion or enrollment in the disciplinary schools. Part of our concern, quite simply, is it's always been against the law to do bad things. Whether it's with my ballpoint pen, if I were to stab someone with that, that's a very serious felony. And so there are laws against doing bad things with my ballpoint, with a knife, with your fist. The substantive bad act is always prosecutable. Unfortunately, it appears the school districts are not taking advantage of the many tools available to them to impose discipline on students, which would be beneficial not only to the school, the other students, but hopefully to the student who's engaged in the misconduct. Because all too often we view our schools as being the express lane to Huntsville. And that's obviously not desirable. And we're not here to advocate for possession of knives in schools. There are many instances where a student might inadvertently bring things, and our concern is marking that student for life with a criminal prosecution. Thank you very much for the time.
And Todd Raffner, we see that you were always knife rights, and you are against the bill.
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you for allowing me to testify before you this evening. Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Todd Raffner. I represent Knife Rights, a national organization dedicated to the protection of America's knife owners, makers, collectors, and manufacturers. And thank you again for allowing me to testify here today. I'm speaking in opposition to HB 4165. I believe the sponsor of the bill and the bill are both well-intentioned, keeping what the sponsor believes are dangerous weapons off school grounds. We have had good conversations with Representative Frazier to discuss and amend the bill. However, even with an amendment, HB 4165 creates yet another criminal offense, which could too easily be subject to abuse against folks who have no intention of violating the law. Primarily, we are concerned about criminalizing the possession of knives of any kind on school grounds. This would include kitchen knives, pocket knives, utility knives. All have legitimate uses and legitimate reasons to be on school grounds. Schools have many ways of disciplining students who illicitly bring knives on school grounds to do harm, as Rick testified to. HB 4165 would remove discretion and make it a criminal offense. For instance, if a student who works at a supermarket inadvertently brings a knife to school in a backpack that they use to open boxes at work, or a knife they use in a kitchen they work at, or a young person who possesses a knife for their job on a family ranch or farm, it even places parents and other adults in jeopardy of prosecution if they happen to be on school grounds with a knife they carry in their pocket every day, as do many Texans. This makes no sense. Further, the bill we're concerned that even if amended, would not allow knives in home ec classes, shop classes, trade classes, art classes, without the express permission of a school administrator. Yes, an amendment might help, but no, it won't solve the underlying issues. Do you as legislators truly want students criminally charged for merely possessing a knife in these situations? This year marks literally a decade. I don't know if you realize that or not, Representative Dutton, but it's been a decade that we've been working with Chairman Dutton, Representative Moody, former Representative Frullo, and many of you to end the senseless prosecution of folks, especially minorities and the economically disadvantaged, for simply possessing a knife they use for work or recreation. HB 4165 will undo some of this good work. Doing harm with a knife is already a crime, as we have pointed out over the past decade. Again, we respect Representative Frazier and appreciate his willingness to work with us. However, Knife Rights urges you to vote no to creating a new criminal offense and to encourage schools to use the tools that they already have to discipline those who should not possess a knife on school grounds. School administrators need to do their job and not ask you to create more criminals to fill Texas jails. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, members? Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 4165? If not, the testimony on House Bill 4165 is now closed, and the chair recognizes Representative Frazier to close on his bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. We've seen this.
Representative Frazier, Representative Chair Dutton has a question for you.
Go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The way I read this, you know, the little packet they always have included a knife and a fork and plastic. Would that be covered under here?
Yes, it would be covered in there. The sub has some layout language in there, but also it wouldn't be able to charge them with that, no, if that's what you're asking.
You wouldn't be able?
Charge somebody for that, no.
Why not?
Because that's part of the utensils type of, it's like the home ec, it goes with the stuff that goes with school.
Well, you understand what I'm saying?
I know what you're trying to say.
Meals sometimes are such that they give you the little plastic knife and plastic spoon and plastic fork. And that wouldn't be covered under here?
No, not to be charged with it, no.
When you say not to be charged, I'm not sure I understand.
It's not a dangerous item that using for the knife. And so I understand what you're saying, but that's not what we're looking for here. What we're looking for here is, and I'll kind of explain a little more, especially with the sub, and you guys haven't seen it, and unfortunately it's not in there, but you have an instrument that inflicting serious bodily injury or death. And I understood his example of using a pen or a pencil or anything like that.
Or a plastic knife.
I guess if you think it can do that.
Yeah.
But that's not what this is looking for. We're looking for the 13-year-old that was just stabbed 7 times by students with a pocket knife in Texas City ISD, 2023. Alvin ISD student stabbed in incident, multiple faculty members, September 27, 2022. And we've had multiple of these knife wounds and fights at these schools, and we've taken that charge away. And so you can charge them obviously with the serious bodily injury of the aggravated assault, but we can't do anything with these knives anymore for the schools. We've taken that position out. And what we've simply asking to do is allow the SROs and the superintendents and the other individuals that are running those schools, when they're seeing these knives in schools, that they're able to do something at charging these students with it.
Well, I'm just a little worried that in an attempt to capture the culprit you named.
Yes, sir.
You've got a wider sphere that catches a whole bunch of people in it. But let me ask this question too. You have something called knife and you define it, and there's something called switchblade knife and you define it.
Yes, sir.
I didn't know why you had both of those.
Well, that's because the definition's in the penal code that way. And so is like brass knuckles there, if they were.
Now, I'm not talking about brass knuckles, Because switchblade knives it would be caught under the knife definition.
Yeah, but the switchblade is a different type of knife.
Yeah, but it would still be a knife, right?
Still a knife.
So if you had a knife in there and didn't even have switchblade, you'd still be able to catch switchblades.
That was the language how, when we got it back from Ledge Council, it came back just like that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you, Madam Chair.
And that language, to clear that up a little bit, that language was there before, when we had it set in the penal code years ago. And I don't remember what session it was that we took it out, but that got removed. And I think there were some unintended consequences when it did get removed, because those are the pictures that we're now getting from the superintendents and from the other SROs that are catching these on campus.
No, the reason it got removed is because it was basically unenforceable. And one of the exceptions that was in the law was switchblade knives were prohibited, prohibited in one part, except if they were considered an antique, they were not prohibited.
Like a novelty?
Yeah, if they were, and so everybody sold switchblade knives as antiques.
Yeah. Well,
because the law didn't define what an antique was.
Yeah, Representative, some of the pictures I've been getting are the brass knuckles with the knife flipping out the side from these superintendents that they're finding on these kids. And that was the one picture that we got from the Alito superintendent that sent in.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, members? Thank you very much.
Yep. Reserve the right to close.
You have you
close.
closed? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been a long day. Thank y'all.
Members, the chair moves to leave House Bill 4165 pending. Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The bill will be left pending. Members, this concludes the committee business for today. Are there any announcements? Are there any comments?
My desk is clear.
If not, Representative Allison moved that the Select Committee on Youth, Health, and Safety stands adjourned subject to the call of the chair. Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The committee stands adjourned.
Thank you, Madam Chair.